Hello, I'm the Smoking Cheddar, but you probably already knew that. So this comes as a request. In fact, I had two such requests, I think, via a Discord DM and a reply to one of my videos. Someone wanted a bomber, a field fighting bomber, and someone else wanted had some questions on a light tank, which I said I would expand on in a later video. However, we are going to start with the bomber today because the bomber is perhaps the most relevant currently. So this is the Gryphon. We're going with a nice ancient beast here to tear your enemies apart with, and this is a Martyr bomber build. Now, obviously, as always, with these videos, and if you catch this as a live stream, you're more than welcome to chime in at the end or during if you feel so inclined to. Uh, get yourselves a drink, guys, get yourselves a snack, sit down, make sure you're comfortable, and obviously, we'll be looking at the tech, we'll be looking at the components, we'll be looking at the officers, we'll be looking at the gear, and we'll also be looking at any um, additional bits and pieces that we can think of as we go through, and we'll discuss sort of how to use it by the end. Now, obviously, with a air build, we're only ever going to really look at half of the advanced tree because it just takes so damn long in order to get to the end of the normal advanced tree, let alone halfway up the modern tree as well. So maybe we'll cover a bit of everything. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But first of all, we're going to look at this unit and why specifically we're using the Martyr bomber. Right. Okay. So this is the page, obviously, we're quite interested in because it gives us our basis for what we're going to be using or how we're going to be using the unit. So we have ground attacks. Obviously, as a bomber, it's going to track a target and destroy it, or at least attack it. We have a camp bonus of tank killer, deals more damage to enemy tanks and bombers of other camps. So this is very specific. We're looking at dealing more damage to specifically armored units. Bit of foreshadowing, let's just say, uh, at that, shall we? So before we look at the tech, we are going to look at the parts because otherwise I will forget. That's the Vanguard, submarine, Martyr bomber. Now, I haven't actually looked at these components in a considerable length of time, so I don't actually know if there's any major difference between any of the parts or if there's any difference at all. Judging by slot 1, there is no difference, so we are going for maneuverability, maneuverability and stability, which is very handy. In slot 2, we don't have any variation again, so it will be firepower and stability. Doesn't appear to be any variation on slot 3 either. HP and maneuverability. That maneuverability is going to be key to keeping us alive, perhaps. We'll see how that goes. Auxiliary systems. We have firepower and we have HP. Now, there's two ways we can do this. We can either double stack firepower, or because it's going to be out in the field attacking ground targets, we can stack one firepower and one HP. This is a personal preference for myself. I use my Vanguard bomber to do a similar task, and I use one firepower and one HP. That is because it is out and about. We're not isolating a base. We're not isolating anything in particular. There could be a light tank down there. There could be an anti-tank gun down there. There could be a fighter on your tail. The extra HP is going to come in pretty handy. And with the officers we're going to pick as well, and the tech, we probably want to just have a 50-50 mix of HP and firepower on this screen. Although it is your choice. You could double stack either, to be perfectly fair, and it would just be either slightly more or slightly less effective in terms of damage or survivability I like to go middle of the road when I'm unsure about how things are going to play out. And in the air, there's always a lot of uncertainty. There could be an interceptor just waiting to leave off from the base as soon as it spots you. And if you don't have a fighter escort, things are going to get messy real fast. If you do have a fighter escort, obviously, or two of them, double firepower if you can get away with it. I have a double fighter escort when I play in silver, but even then, I still use 1 HP and 1 firepower. Make of that as you will. That is a personal preference. I'd encourage it. Be useful if I could click on the right thing, really, wouldn't it? Now, the advanced technology for planes. Now, we could, okay, first of all, we could go all the way to the end of this tree and we could discuss this. But as you can see, it costs 10k in coins, just in city badges, not to account for the fact it takes all of this in resources. And these are all absurdly expensive. The Air Force is naturally the most expensive tree in, with the exception of the Dominion tree in the game. And if you're going to include offensive only, obviously city defense is a whole other kettle of fish. But we don't talk about that because that is for people who like to hide. I'm just kidding. This, the city defense is fine if you're into that sort of gameplay. I'm not. So we have base troop and damage resist, and troop and base damage intensity, but we also get all-weather combat. Now, we will discuss this briefly as we are here. When your Air Force troop starts a battle, their firepower is increased 5% for every second for a maximum of 25% until they leave the battle. I think roughly your bombing, depending if the target's moving or not, is going to be about 8 seconds. So your final attack's going to be on 25%, but it's going to slowly stack up prior to that. And this is a key distinction here. It says when your Air Force troop starts a battle. So if it's being engaged by a fighter, that's not going to count because it's not counted as starting a battle. It's been engaged. So it's not really particularly useful unless we're talking in terms of fighter. What's the best pairing for the ATG? I've covered that. That is in my anti-tank gun build that I've done recently on my live streams. We will just quickly dip in to my officers, and I use Steel Angel here as the captain, and I use Maestro as the aide, and I stack penetration on both of them, and I take this normal attack boost with load time reduction as a special, so I can get more shots out faster. And we use this best of the best because it increases the unit damage resistance when it's out in the field and in AA mode, as well as increasing the base damage resistance by an additional 10%. This is my personal idea at a best build. And this hits really hard with skill damage. However, I find that Maestro as captain and Golden Eagle as aide also works exceptionally well for its normal attack damage versus tanks. But I am digressing. We need to go back on track. Okay, so we've covered the tech. We're not going to go into the modern tech for the Gryphon, the fighter, the bomber plane, the Gryphon. We are going just to simply carry on with this build. And for the captain, we're going to be using Old Stash. Now, technically, it doesn't matter which one is the captain and which one is the aide, because the skill damage is applied at the same time, which means the skill effect, which is on said officer, is also applied at the same time. You're now running all 3 infantry campers of today. Is wonderful. I'm not far behind you. I will show you once we get back into silver. it's well on its way. Do excuse me. Anyway, Old Stash as the captain. Why have we got Old Stash on this build? It is because we are able to trap the target for up to 2 seconds while dealing 1100 damage coefficiency plus additional skill damage. But when he is awakened, um, we're just going to be hitting the target like a truck. When this bomber troop, each bombing run deals skill damage twice the target coefficient of 1,100. You times that by 2, that's 2,200. And each deals AoE up to 2 enemy troops. This is going to be key because remember the brief was we want field attack units, specifically field attack, so we can hit up to 2 adjacent units for additional damage here. So splash damage is perfect. It's great for sniping out AGs, and we are looking at capitalizing on that with the firepower. The other skills we're looking at here is we have a damage resist, which is useful, but this one, which is most key to the build, we are looking at damage intensity and a further damage intensity increase. And we're looking at firepower and HP increase. And for the train skills, we are looking at damage intensity some more. We've picked up a 15 here from Pixie. And for the special skill for the captain, we've gone for a cruising speed buff because getting in and out of dodge quickly is extremely useful. I can't stress that enough, especially when it comes to your bombers, especially when there's things like light tanks and anti-tank guns on the ground that can point their guns up. That's before we even get into the fact there could be a fighter chasing you. That cruising speed, ladies, is going to be key. I just remembered we did not finish a key point in the advanced here, which is airplane tech. When your bombers leave their base, the cruising speed is increased by 30% for 10 seconds, which is, you might have seen the link I just made there. And of course, naturally, if we're getting up to the halfway point, you are going to want all of your bomber tech maxed out. The ground bombing firepower, the bomber stability, and the reduced bombing interval. This one in particular is going to be key, especially alongside your speed increases that we're looking to get. We're looking to basically take off mid-range away from the base. We can see an enemy AG, pick off the units, come back. Anyway, what gear would we put on him? Now, this is the gear I currently have equipped. Now, often I say things like we don't cover legendary. However, some of this legendary gear is actually very easy to achieve. Now, this one in particular that I've got here, the Night Sweeper helm, no good for your bomber. It has an intercept. We don't need it. This one, however, the Silver Star handgun, if you can get it, and you can get it to level 5, we are going to be looking at troop HP 7% minimum, and we're going to be looking at a normal attack boost of 3.5 with a firepower of 3.5 as well. We can actually preview these at maximum through this page here. We can get an additional 48% in troop HP. We can get an additional 24% in normal attack boost. Bear in mind, our normal attack against a tank, because we're using a Martyr bomber, is going to be naturally higher. So this is going to be perfect for us. We're getting an additional 24% for firepower, which our skill damage and our splash damage, which is also skill based, is going to be coming directly off of. So this item is extremely good for this build. And we can get this one as well. And this one's very easy to level up because we get the epic pieces every single day. The legendary pieces we do have to work a little bit harder to get, but the epic pieces we do get every single day. We do get a bonus HP, and we do get, again, a normal attack boost. Now, I can't stress this enough. The normal attack boost is going to be handy for us, but it is not going to be key. The normal attack boost is going to give us leverage in terms of our damage intensity. So our damage intensity works as damage over the enemy's damage resistance. The normal attack boost is then added on, but is only countered by your enemy's normal attack resistance. And our normal attacks are dealing more damage against tanks specifically. So this is going to be useful for us, but it's going to look a bit squiffy when we look at the aid as well. So that I've done this in a bit of an arse about face way. You do have my apologies. So this is on the captain, old stash, and this is on your aid. But who is the aid? I'm all muck and jumbled. Dawn Striker. We're going with Dawn Striker because Dawn Striker is perfect for what we want. Why is she perfect, I hear you say? This, once she's awakened, this officer's bomber troop deals damage to a target with each bombing run of a damage coefficient of 2000. So we're hitting for 1100 twice, which is 2200. I can add up, plus the additional 2000. That is 4200. It deals extra skill damage to enemy troops surrounding the target for 200. That's enemy troops surrounding the target. That's not one grid, two grids, one unit, two units. This is all enemies. So this is really good as well if you're using a Liberty Bomber. But specifically for this build, we're not. We're using the Martyr Bomber, but this is going to be very, very, very good, especially if there's a light tank sitting in the middle of an AG. We're looking at being able to pick that light tank off very quickly now and damage its surrounding friends. Give them a bit of a black eye. So what are we going for? Now I know there is a normal attack boost we could use, but we are not. We're going for damage intensity because damage intensity also is directly affecting our skill damage output. Whereas the normal attack boost is only affecting the normal attack. So damage intensity does the normal attack and the skill. This is why we're kind of leaning more into the damage intensity side of things. And as the secondary trained skill, we're going with Venomous Bite. This is particularly good for this because it is not locked to a fighter despite being on a fighter officer. It increases the damage intensity of this officer's troop by 6%, going up to 20. When attacking an enemy with a shield, increases the troop's damage intensity by an additional 20%. So if you are attacking a MBT which has a shield, or a light tank that has a shield, or naturally a super heavy that has a shield, you're going to get an additional 20% damage intensity against the target, and you're going to be able to slap it silly. Are you with me so far, chat? Because we're about to go into how we're going to pile all of this information together. Because it is a bit fucky-wucky. I've done it in a bit of a confusing way. But I'm a confusing kind of guy, so... Normally, like I said, when I used to have the free time to edit these videos, I would just talk and then just edit it in the right order. Unfiltered me. That's not even the right one. I don't even have any of that unlocked, so you've got to look at this one. So, the Gryphon. Quick recap, we're looking at increased cruising speed through both trained skills and our tech tree. We're looking at increased firepower and damage intensity and reduced bombing intervals through our tech tree. We're looking at increased firepower and HP as a combination because we are going out in the field through our level 4 components. There are no variations on levels 1, 2, and 3. So we just go with what we've got in the best. And obviously, we're going to want to go camp specific. You always want to go camp specific where possible because it is going to benefit you the most when you start throwing wrenches into these things. Now onto the officers. We've got 2 lots of splash attack. Okay, so the splash attack is going to enable us to hit a target. The Martyr Bomber is going to deal extra unit damage to MBTs, to light tanks, to SHs, to I think helicopters technically count as well. And then on top of that, we've trained in a skill where if they have a shield, we're going to deal an additional 20% damage intensity. We're looking at increasing that damage intensity through our gear components as well. So, what's our priority target? unshielded light tanks in the middle of an army group, or even in a small cluster being controlled, micromanaged by a single player. With this build, we're looking to take out their ability for mobile anti-air very quickly. We're looking to then turn this on to things like tanks. Now, that's not to say that this would be no good attacking artillery or an anti-tank gun. That's absurd. We've got an extremely high amount of firepower, and we've also got a very high amount of skill damage, ranging around the 4,000 mark, which is insane. And when you drop a bomb like that on an artillery unit, it doesn't matter whether or not you get bonus damage, it's going to wipe it out. But more importantly, if there's multiple artillery units nearby, you're going to damage them significantly because both of the officers have a splash attack for adjacent targets. Old Stash is higher, but his target options are limited, whereas Dawn Striker's damage splash attack is lower, but it's relatively unlimited. It's limited only by the number that you can fit physically next to the unit. So we're able to craft a aircraft here that is able to swiftly eliminate light tanks, and then we can start picking off whatever targets of opportunity we see fit on the battlefield at leisure. This thing is going to snipe units, and it is going to have the enemy scrambling fighters and coming after you, which is why I said if you are going for these sorts of builds, you do need other air assets available. Not necessarily your own, but if you do have a player that is online who does have fighters that are good, or a fighter that is good, you can at least augment that in the field and provide it some cover. And if you are a fighter player and you see a bomber player attacking, do exactly that. Be a good teammate and just provide some cover for those bombers, because this is going to enable your alliance to pick off incoming units in an AG, providing you've got either the surprise or the air dominance in order to do it. Once it gets close enough to a base, it's fairly irrelevant because it's not going to have the same area of damage that a Liberty bomber does. But you are going to be able to track targets. That means anyone that's moving from left to right on your screen, if you're beneath that, then you're able to just go, hey, I can pick off that artillery piece at the back, or I can pick off that light tank hovering around at the back, or I can pick off that lead element at the front, or just snipe random units in the middle, and they won't notice. The whole point of this is that you just dive on an enemy target and you tear it to shreds as quickly as possible. We are not looking to mess around. We're looking to get in and out and deal our damage in the process. That is it. This thing will murder MBTs from the sky as well. We've given it that capability through the unit selection, and we've given it that capability through the gear selection in addition. And obviously, every single pass you're doing unit damage, and you're not dealing one lot or two lots of skill damage, you're dealing three lots of skill damage because Old Stash applies his twice. So shields are going to be rendered pretty ineffective very quickly. And because of that, you're also getting an additional 20% damage intensity on a shielded target, which means you're going to be able to remove that shield even faster and deal more damage to the target. So I hope this this build satisfies the request that was befelled upon me at the end of last. Oh, Happy New Year, by the way. This is my first stream this year. I'm doing it at the end of this week rather than the start because I couldn't be bothered to do it at the start of the week, so I'm doing it now instead. So as always, guys, we'll just go into a little bit of a Q&A. If you have any questions, now's the time. And once I've answered a couple of questions, I'm a bounce out because I'm wearing a t-shirt, it's a bit cold, and I don't want to play Warpath tonight. I want to play something else. I want to play, like, I don't know, I want to say Assassin's Creed. I installed it like 3 times, and for 3 times I've still not played Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So I'm gonna try and play that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see who's on Discord. If there's anyone in Discord, I'll probably just end up playing something they're playing. So have we got any questions this evening? Or do we have a silent chat? I can see there's 7 of you in there. 7 is it's reasonable. I know it's not a Monday night. I know you guys aren't really used to me doing it this late. Okay then. So if that's the case, the next week we'll be doing the light tank, which was kind of like the semi-second request. I did say I'd revisit the light tank, so we're going to go back to that. And if you guys have any suggestions for any unit builds you would like to see, remember the more information you give me, the easier it is for me to be very specific about what it is I can help you with your builds with. Obviously, I was asked field bomber that's good at taking out units. This is pretty much the bare minimum that I need. Obviously, the more specific you get, the more specific I can be in targeting. Air is always a funny one because it is so expensive to produce and to effectively front in terms of tech. Not only that, the wrenches as well. So if you are struggling, let me know. Either in game, in Discord, in the comments section. Hell, wait until the next live stream, which I'm hoping will be on Monday, and yeah, we'll go from there. Anyway, I've been the Smoking Cheddar, and you guys have been very patient. As always, a link to the Discord is in the description box down below. And yes, so is the link to Cats Protection. But obviously, don't just donate to Cats Protection. If you have a charity of your choosing, do that. That's just as fine. £1, £2, whatever. I don't care. I know Christmas is over, but it doesn't mean we have to stop being good people to everyone around us. Okay. I don't know. I haven't really got anything funny to say other than I have a Geiger counter. I keep turning it on in the hopes that I'm going to just basically die in a radioactive nuclear waste. He keeps threatening to nuke my country, and he just hasn't got on with it. I mean, just hurry up, dude. You know, I'm gonna die of old age before I get to die of nuclear poisoning.